You also have the media recorder, which is pretty straightforward, and then audio track and audio record, which play and record direct PCM buffers. So if you want to do something with direct sound manipulation, you can use that. And then lastly there's Jet Player, which I'll talk about in a bit. So media playback, and this is just an example of a call, like a media playback call. You simply instantiate a media player object. As you can see, it's pretty simple, right? You instantiate a media player object. You give it a data source, which can be HTTP stream. It could be an RTSP stream. It could be local resource, and then you just prepare it and start it. Very simple. Obviously, I mean there are some things that you might need to kind of expand on if you're doing like a very highly multi-threaded application, but that's the core of it. Also for video, there's this common use case of I have an activity, I have a screen in my app, and I just want to play video there, right? I want to play like a little video somewhere in the middle, or maybe you want to make like a full screen video. There's a video view tag available for that. All you do is in your layout XML define a video view. In your Java, you find that video view, you give it a URL, and you press play. And it's that simple. It manages all the threading, all the concurrency, all of that. So some of the best practices, I'm probably actually running a little low on time. Some of the quick best practices, if you're playing music in the background, make sure to use foreground services. Foreground services effectively are services that are fundamental and important to the user experience. So if the system were to destroy that service, to stop that service to conserve resources, it would be almost pretty devastating to the user experience. So you can imagine playing music in the background, if the system decides to just stop that, that's not very good for the user experience. So that's foreground services, and be careful when using foreground services because you don't want to do that unless it's absolutely necessary. And also volume controls. There's this. I'm not going to go into much detail, but use that when you have problems with volume controls. So really quickly, I'll talk about some of the containers and codecs. I'm not going to list all of them that are available. There's a detailed guide down there. It's on our developer site. But for recording, you can record H.263 video with AMR narrowband audio, and then record it to a 3GP container format. That's good for video recording and low bitrate video if you want to stream that, or just ship it to the device. And then for high bitrate video and audio, you probably want to use H.264 with AAC or MP3 and in the MP4 container format. One other thing I wanted to talk about is protocol and bitrate, and I get this question a lot. Protocol, some of the protocols we have available are HTTP and real-time streaming protocol. One of the questions I get a lot is, what about HTTP live streaming or adaptive bitrate technologies, which are kind of like some of the hot new things in the space. It's not something we have available. We're definitely aware that there's a high demand for it, and we're definitely looking into how we can integrate that into the platform. But we don't have much to say beyond that at this time. For bit rates, some basic recommended bit rates if you're trying to do streaming. If you detect that the user is on Wi-Fi, you may be able to provide them a pretty high fidelity stream, so like something like 500 kilobits per second. And you can see all the way down to Edge or 2G, you want to go a lot lower, and that's kind of like a basic recommendation. One thing I'll say about these recommendations is that it is just a recommendation. Make sure to test it in your market, in your country, and with your carrier, or with a number of carriers, because this will definitely vary. The network speeds will definitely vary. So this is something to start with, and then iterate from there. And one thing I'll quickly mention something about the NDK, because there's definitely something to be said there. For the developers that want to use DRM technologies or need some more control over what's going on with the media stack, you always have access to you can pretty much recreate the entire media stack if you wanted using the native development kit. However, there's one issue where currently right now sound output and actually sound input as well. Sound output is not available in the NDK. So the way to kind of overcome that is to do a lot of your sound processing in the NDK and push that up over JNI, which is Java's native interface. Push that up to the audio track interface to play that directly from Java. So I think Dan will actually talk a little bit more about the JNI stuff, not the JNI, the NDK stuff. So if you're interested in that, pay attention. So I'm not going to do the JetBoy demo. I was going to do a demo of this simple little game. It actually comes with the SDK. It's one of the samples that ships with the SDK. So if you guys are interested to see like a cool, simple little I think it's Canvas-based demo, then check out JetBoy. What I will say is that JetBoy uses something called the Jet Player engine, and actually I mentioned this earlier. This is the part where I want to talk about it. If you're creating a game that has, and your requirements are, some just basic MIDI sounds or, basic kind of sound effects, this is definitely something to consider. Using the Jet Creator tool to create this thing called a Jet file that has all of your, scripted music events encoded into it. It pretty much lets you take, MIDI files and script them, and allow you to script them via Java. It's pretty interesting. It lets you do like some really fun things with games. So if you're developing a game and you want some simple music, then look at this. It also results in kind of smaller file sizes because you're dealing with MIDI. So with that, that's the fastest I could possibly do for a media framework and media player introduction. Dan will go ahead and start kind of give you a spiel about game development. Thanks all.